Hello, I'm Dr. Diana Dudoit Raiche, and I teach in the Neuhoff School of Ministry, and I am going to talk about the religious significance of Mardi Gras. I bet you didn't know there was a religious significance to Mardi Gras. I'm a native Louisianan. I married a native New Orleanian, and I went to college in New Orleans. So I've had a healthy dose of Mardi Gras from the time that I was very, very small. So some of this is from my recollection. Some of it's from the stories that were told to me that I remember. Maybe we'll call them legends. And some of it is based on some historical fact. We know about Mardi Gras because of the parties. We know about Mardi Gras because of what we see in card stores. We see things on television. There's a much deeper meaning to Mardi Gras that I always like to resurrect. So Mardi Gras is really a mélange. Mélange is that French word that means it's like gumbo. Everything is put into the pot, comes out smelling good and tasting good. It's a mélange of traditions. And these traditions come from both Christian and pre-Christian cultures. Now, it is true that in the 4th century, Catholic bishops decided to adopt and adapt the pagan custom of celebrating the sun god. It was Mithras for the Persians, it was Dionysus for the Egyptians, and for the Greeks. But Christians actually borrowed this concept and they turned it into a celebration of the Son of Man and the three magi, or those from the East who brought bearing gifts for Jesus as a baby. That's an important thing to remember, because anybody who's not familiar with religious symbolisms or the liturgical year might miss some of the significance of what's going on here. There are many, many diverse elements that go into making Mardi Gras. It can be traced back to medieval Europe in the 12th century, but it arrived in Louisiana in 1699 when a French explorer landed in a part of the Mississippi River that's about 60 miles south of New Orleans. The significance is he landed on Mardi Gras that was being celebrated back in his native country. So in Louisiana, it became a legal holiday in 1875. Now that's really important because there's this big rivalry between Springfield in Alabama and New Orleans in Louisiana as to who had the first Mardi Gras. But if you're from Louisiana, you say that Louisiana had the first Mardi Gras. Carnival, as it's known, or Carnival, is a whole season in New Orleans. And it's meant to be the last hurrah party season before you get to the season of Lent. And that's what a lot of people kind of fail to understand. Fat Tuesday is what Mardi Gras translates into. And it's named Fat Tuesday because you were supposed to empty your larder, your cabinet, your cupboard, of all fattening foods, of all special treats. You were supposed to get rid of anything in the house that was going to tempt you to have another party. Because in the season of Lent, you were supposed to adopt a more meditative and reflective stance. And it was intended to bring about the transformation of your life, transformation of your moral code, whatever in your life needed to be cleaned up. You had only one shot for the big party before you went into the 40 days of Lent. Now, if you ever heard anybody say, "What are you giving up for Lent?" That's where that comes from. Or, "What are you going to do for Lent?" In other words, what act of social justice are you going to do for Lent? So it was a twofold process. You self-sacrifice so that you can be more reflective, and you decide to do good with the time that you have instead of partying. When I was growing up in Louisiana, we actually never went to movies during Lent. We didn't have any dances during Lent. We obviously didn't have any sweets because we were giving those things up. And it was just part of the culture. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized, not everybody does this. Now, the liturgical season of Lent is intentionally marked are characterized by prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. That was true then, it's true now. And we try to reiterate that, especially in the students when I teach liturgy, so I'm always trying to reiterate those three aspects of the season of Lent. This is all moving toward the high point in liturgical season, which is Easter, which is going to celebrate the resurrection of the Lord. King cake. I have a king cake for you. Ta-da! If you've never seen a king cake, This is a great tradition in Louisiana, but guess what? It's not just a tradition in Louisiana. It's a tradition that comes from actually pre-Christian era. The king cake is associated with Mardi Gras and the arrival of the three kings, as I had mentioned earlier. And the arrival of the three kings, of course, it comes on the feast, the Christian feast of Epiphany, which is January 6th. Now, Epiphany is also known as the Little Christmas or the 12th night. And this was traditionally a time for exchanging gifts and for feasting. Each culture celebrates the cake differently, but there's always something hidden inside that cake. In France, the cake started out as a puff pastry with an almond cream in the middle. The hidden item in France could be just a bean, but in Latin America, it turned into a small figure or a baby. This little figure, the bean, the small figure, was to signify the Christ child. And finding the hidden figure is like the Magi finding the Christ child. Now, according to legend, the legend that I received as a child, the small figure was a golden nugget. And if you found the golden nugget, you were then obligated to give the next party, and the golden nugget was something to help you finance the next party. There could be, and should be, a party from Epiphany all the way through what we now call ordinary time in a liturgical season until Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. Now, one bakery in New Orleans has given options for ordering various different Mardi Gras characters to put inside their king cakes. And I went, well, then gone is the notion of the baby that's connected with the child Jesus. Another tradition comes from France, where a young child would hide under the table where the king cake lay, and the child would then designate who in the room is supposed to get which piece. You get the first piece, you get the second piece, you get the third piece, etc. And when the person who got the baby in the or the bean in the king cake announced that they had it, they would be considered either the king or the queen of the party. And if they were the king or the queen of the party, guess what? They had the opportunity to find a spouse that evening. And in France, there was a gold paper crown that was put on the man. There was a silver paper crown that was put on the queen. Kingship plays a big part in our notion of Mardi Gras. In the city of New Orleans, there are crews, Krewes. These are social clubs. The social clubs are there to keep promoting and maintaining Mardi Gras, but they're also there for some noble and justice reasons as well. The premier crew in New Orleans is Rex, Latin for king, and the Louisiana custom of decorating the Mardi Gras king cake uses, as you saw, purple, green, and gold. And I am well decked out in purple, green, and gold today. These are the official Mardi Gras colors. Those colors were selected in 1872 by Crew Rex in honor of a Russian duke, a Grand Duke, whose house colors were purple, green, and gold. And so in 1892, the Rex Parade used the theme of the symbolism of colors in order to affirm the colors' meaning and to pretty much make sure that they were going to be a part of the consciousness for Mardi Gras. Purple represents justice, green represents faith, and gold represents power. Now, the throwing of the beads at Mardi Gras is something that you might be familiar with. As you can see, the beads are produced in purple, green, and gold. Before plastic, they were, of course, glass beads. And a crew member riding on a parade float would then toss these beads out to the crowd, thus the saying, "Hey, mister, throw me something." But the trick is, in the earlier iteration, if a crew member saw someone that looked like they manifest justice, guess what color bead they got? Purple. If they looked like they were a person of faith, they got a green bead. And if they looked like they were very well dressed and a person of power, of course, they got the gold bead. In Louisiana, there are flambeaux or torch bearers, and these torch bearers would walk along the side of the parade so that the partying could and the feasting could continue at night. Now, although some of the torch bearers were actually paid a little bit of money, as they would light the way, the people in the crowd would throw coins at them in payment for what they were doing. Now today, the coin toss has been turned into, hey, mister, throw me something, so that now we have doubloons. And those are plastic little doubloons that are actually pretty prized depending upon which crew you get them from. Now, historically, masks were worn during Mardi Gras. I have several varieties of masks. They can be as elaborate as with feathers. They can be as simple as the harlequin, or of course, bedecked with sequins is something very easy for a woman to wear and not muss her hair. And sometimes these masks are on a pole. So all you have to do is take it on and off, and I'm sure you've seen that in the movies. What's the purpose of the mask? The mask was to democratize what was going on with Mardi Gras so that those who were constrained by class or social rank would be allowed to mingle with everybody because they were covered with the mask, at least for a few days. Now, it could be that the mask then and now becomes a license for some misbehavior, but at least the beautiful ones are also a part of a costume if you're going to a costume party. Now, what are the roots of this merriment and this festivity and this partying? The idea of making merry is connected with Christmas because of the joy of Christmas, because of the joy of the birth of Christ. We want to continue to celebrate. And that's why at the Feast of the Three Kings, or Epiphany, we're going to continue the celebration all the way through what we now call this ordinary time until we get to Ash Wednesday. And of course, Mardi Gras, that Tuesday, is that Tuesday right before Ash Wednesday. The problem is that when we begin to have all of this merry-making and festivities without a real deep understanding of its origins, where it comes from, and rooted in Christ and rooted in the liturgical year, then something is missing. So what is the takeaway about the religious significance of Mardi Gras? First of all, it's a season that officially begins on Epiphany, January 6th, and it's clearly a religious feast day. Second, the continued festivities originated with a round cake, and the round cake signifies the circuitous route that the Magi had to take in order to hide the location of the infant Jesus because Herod wanted to kill him. Remember, he was supposed to be the king of the Jews, and Herod couldn't have another king around. Thirdly, the hidden figure, which is representing the Christ child, is representing, when someone finds it, it represents the Magi finding the Christ child. The extended Mardi Gras season from Epiphany through Mardi Gras is going to have all kinds of additional cultural elements. For example, colors, purple, green, gold, beads, masks, coins called doubloons. And sometimes you'll find people bedecked with, colorful hats. You'll find them bedecked with very colorful parasols. You'll find all kinds of accoutrements that people might decorate their houses with. But the point of the matter is, all of this is going to culminate in Fat Tuesday, or Mardi Gras. On Ash Wednesday, the frivolity is put away. The accoutrements are put away for another season, and now we're moving into the season of Lent. Fat Tuesday is getting ready for Lent. It's the day that we remember, man, you are dust, and unto dust you will return, and repent and believe the gospel. Mardi Gras looks backwards to the birth of Jesus and the Feast of the Epiphany. It looks forward to Lent, and it prepares to celebrate Easter, or the resurrection of the Lord. Now, the date for Mardi Gras is going to be set by the date for Ash Wednesday. That's why it's never on the same date, like January 6th is always Epiphany. But that Ash Wednesday date and that Mardi Gras date are going to be determined by the date of Easter, which is always a movable feast. So, when you enjoy Mardi Gras celebrations, don't forget their origins. And don't forget their purpose of the celebrations. And don't forget, there really is a religious significance to everything we're doing. And to celebrate the joy of Jesus Christ coming into this world.